very interesting week one, if you will. And I think when you start looking around, we're gonna get a pretty good indicator of where things stand almost immediately. Because I think when you look at, for instance, in the ACC in week one, obviously we saw SMU struggle. We saw Florida State struggle. But can you really make the argument that, I don't know, a Stanford TCU game's a huge game for the ACC? I don't think you can. But then again, you have Clemson and Georgia Saturday. That game is in Atlanta at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I think that's a huge game. Like I think this opening week of the college football season, obviously with Miami and Florida, I think we're going to get a real good look at where the ACC is.
Absolutely. And I think, these big matchups, are even more magnified with what happened to Florida State. Obviously, you look at, this Clemson Georgia matchup and nobody's giving Clemson a chance. And that's probably rightfully so. That's probably spot on based on where Clemson is at and based on where Georgia is at. But I think that's still a huge game. That's a primetime game. That's a big game for the conference. And then, the Miami Florida game, I still maintain that, Miami has this opportunity, this window in time where if you can get off to a good start this year, you can really, grab this conference by the horns, if you will, and take control. Because you got to think Clemson's going to lose that game. Obviously, Florida State's lost. So if you can win against Florida, you're in the driver's seat already.
Yeah, and then I think maybe the game of the week to watch in the Big 12, and I know it's going to sound crazy, Colorado and North Dakota State, that number now is at 10 points, according to ESPN Bet. The number is 10 in favor of Colorado. Yes, it's in Boulder at Folsom Field. It is a 6 o'clock Mountain Time kickoff. I don't have any confidence at all. I need to see it with Colorado. I need to see the offensive line be better. I need to see the defensive line stop the run. I think that is one of the most critical games in the conference this week. I get it. I think you have a lot of big games. BYU Saturday at LaVell Edwards Stadium. Not going to name a starter before the game. They know who it is. Let's stop joshing around, friends.
Right.
They know who the starting quarterback in Provo is. I believe pretty firmly it's Jake Retzloff. We'll see if I'm proven right or not. BYU's a 14.5-point favorite over a pretty good Southern Illinois team. I think that's a huge game. Arizona, who seems to be everybody's favorite underdog, 21st in the country, a massive 31-point favorite. Massive 31-point. I said 31 points against New Mexico, who's 0-1, by the way. That game's at Arizona Stadium. I do think that this is and I don't mean to over-dramatize this, and I know that we tend to talk in hyperbole and we tend to get dramatic. I think that this is a critical season in the Big 12. I think without question, when we've spent the first couple of days of this week talking about UConn and Deion Sanders versus Paul Feinbaum and Deion is seemingly against everybody. I think this is a critical season in the Big 12. Failure is not really an option. I think when you look at the underdog teams, I think it is absolutely imperative that teams like Colorado prove a point in week one. They need to come out of the gate at Folsom Field and absolutely dust North Dakota State. And I don't know that that's going to happen. I am not, I don't know. Am I a believer in Deion Sanders?
Do you believe?
I am a believer. I think Deion is a very good football coach. I think he is somebody that takes the little kernel of controversy, whether it's sunglasses and how my mom raised me and all that good stuff, whether he gets combative, which he has with the media. Deion Sanders is an expert at bringing his guys to kickoff on an edge with a point to prove, with an enemy on the other side of the field. He has been excellent at that. Have they always won those games? They have not. But this is only year 2. And I know it feels like he's been at Colorado a decade. This is year 2 of Deion Sanders in Boulder. And I think it is a critical season for his coaching career. Whether you are Colorado or if he leaves there to go to another stop, it is a critical juncture of his life as a football coach. And I think he absolutely has to come out and dominate this weekend.
Yeah, 100%. I think, Colorado is a team that, obviously people, hate on Colorado. They hate on Prime. It seems like Colorado's always in the news for one reason or another. Last year there was a lot of controversy with, how they played their games, the battles they had, the Colorado State situation. Like, there were a lot of things that Colorado went through last season, but yeah, I mean, I think generally speaking, winning cures all. And if Deion Sanders can somehow come out and put together a 6-7 win season, that's going to be a huge improvement. If you can just be bowl eligible, if you can come out and show that you're clearly improving, that's going to be a big step forward. And I do think that this season, with it being, Shador's last season, him, being the number 1 overall projected pick right now in the preseason rankings anyway, I think there's a little more pressure. Obviously, Shador is a huge talent, is a great talent at quarterback. And those guys don't just fall off trees. So to me, if I'm Deion Sanders, this is definitely one of those years where you got to make hay. And I don't know if that's, necessarily even needing to contend in even the top 5 of the Big 12. But what it is bowl eligibility. It would be great if you got to 7 wins even. And it would be great if you could just add some credibility to the program through winning some ball games this year. And obviously, this you should beat these guys. Obviously, North Dakota State is a team that you should control, you should dominate. There's no question about that to me.
I think North Dakota State and South Dakota State represent 2 very good adversaries. They're 2 of the best teams in FCS. And you look at North Dakota State and South Dakota State, would anybody really be that surprised if we turn on the tube Sunday morning and Oklahoma State lost to South Dakota State or Colorado lost to North Dakota State? I would not be that surprised. We've talked about it at length. I think that this is a critical season for Mike Gundy. If they do not go to the college football playoff, I think you got to start talking about, what's ahead for Oklahoma State football. I think he has to. I think is it an indictment on Mike Gundy and Oak State that they're only a 9.5-point favorite?
I mean,
at home?
A little bit. Yeah. I mean, I think, Mike Gundy in Oklahoma State is definitely a program that should be in the college football playoff conversation all year long. And, seemingly every year in week 1 of the college football season, we get, teams that lose games they shouldn't lose. And again, I know I keep referencing Florida State, but that's a great example this year of a game you shouldn't lose, but somehow you lost. And the problem is that Mike Gundy can't really, afford to lose this kind of game. You need to come out and get off to a really good start, knowing that you have big time opposition later in the season. And that, to me, if you're an Oklahoma State fan, that's what I'd be looking at, because ultimately, we can sit here and talk about, Ollie Gordon and Alan Bowman and, we got wide receivers and everything's amazing. But ultimately, isn't it the conversation every year? Don't we always hear in the preseason or in, heading into week 1, hey, we got, we're great. We got all this talent, but it never seems to pan out. It never seems to lead to a college football playoff berth, which in the expanded format now is kind of unacceptable.
Yeah, I think there are some huge games this weekend. I think Baylor and Tarleton. Tarleton's actually a pretty good team. Baylor's a 26.5-point favorite at McLean. I'm a 26.5-point favorite. Who I think has maybe one of the biggest games of the weekend? UNLV. UNLV is in Houston to take on Houston. And Houston's only a 2.5-point favorite. I think there's a good chance. Now, Willie Fritz, I would believe, it will have Houston at a much higher level than we saw them at any time last year. I think there's a chance that UNLV can win that game. Now, I also think that Abilene Christian and at Jones AT&T in Lubbock, they have that's a death sentence. I think Joey's boys are going to come out and absolutely.
But see, that's another example of a team that has to be better, right? I mean, Texas Tech should come out and absolutely eviscerate that team. They should come out and drop, a 40 piece, a 50 piece. Like, come out and assert, your dominance on that team. Get off to a good start. And again, when when I'm watching these games in week 1 of college football, all I'm looking for is, how are you going to start your season? What is the feeling of your team starting the season? Can you come out and destroy someone and be like, hey, we are that team? Like, Texas Tech is going to be 8-9 wins this year. Or are you going to struggle? Are you going to only beat, a squad like that by, 2 possessions?
But I think you also have arguably the best running back in the conference. I think you have the best running back quarterback combo that you've had in some time at Texas Tech. I have no idea what we're going to get from Avery Johnson, who's named after the former Spurs coach. I hope. I don't think he is. Because he's also got a pretty good running back behind him, right? Like, I mean, there's some good backs in this conference. I think Taj Brooks is the most underappreciated and arguably the best back in this conference.
Totally agree.
And I think that the excuses have been taken away from Joey McGuire at Tech. I mean, it's pew-pew time in Lubbock. Like, it is time to go. But again, I say all of this because I think with the weakness that Florida State showed, I feel like there's a real opportunity for the Big 12 to put 2 into the college football playoff. What if Miami loses to Florida this weekend?
Yeah, the ACC is in a bad spot.
If you're the ACC, that Miami game's a must win. It's a must win. Because Mario Cristobal will quickly be packing his shit in South Florida. Excuse my French.
Mm-hmm.
He will be on the way out the door in Miami. If they lose that game, it's not.
Pack everything up. We're out of here.
It's not a conversation. I do declare every week for Miami is must win. Well, I think it is, because you look at what Mario Cristobal represented, the dream job, the kids coming home,
right?
Like, they were supposed to be much better than they were last year. I think that they are one of the biggest disappointments coming out of last season. I think they also have some of the highest expectations. Like, who's a coach that could get fired after another bad season? An 8-ball. Dave Aranda at Baylor. Nobody. If they have a bad season, nobody's going to think twice about it.
Nope.
If Mario Cristobal has a bad season at Miami, he's going to get fired, and it will be shocking. It will be shocking. And I think maybe this is dramatic, but I think there's a real chance if Mario Cristobal fails at Miami this year, I think there's a chance we never see Miami Hurricane football again. I think they will become an afterthought. They will lose funding. Their stadium push, all that stuff goes away.
Mm-hmm.
If they have another disappointing season, if they do not compete, and I'm not saying they have to win the ACC championship. They have to be in that game, in my opinion.
Well, I think at a minimum in the game, but I think with the way the season's already panning out in the ACC, you have an opportunity. Clemson is most likely going to lose that game. Florida State's lost. So Miami is the obvious next team to step into that auto bid position. And that's the thing with the college football playoff. If you win your conference, obviously you get that auto bid in. And so it's like, hey, if you're, in the Big 12, you're looking at this and you're saying, okay, well, the ACC is not really looking too good. They're potentially only going to get their conference champion in unless Florida State somehow runs the table, unless Clemson somehow runs the table after losing to Georgia. Like,
But think about that statement. Florida State had their own week of college football. Like, that was the game.
Yes.
And you failed miserably. The game this week, I could argue, is Clemson, Georgia. That's going to have a huge TV number. If Clemson gets torched, and I don't have Listen, I understand it. Dabo, we get it.
We built this program on NIL.
You're not that guy, pal, right? You can't go there. You can't lose by 21 to Georgia. It's not an option. It is not an option. And then if Miami loses to Florida, the season's, I mean, just turn the TV off.
Yeah.
Turn the TV off. Like it would be remarkable.
I mean, you're just paving the way for the Big and the SEC to get,
No, you're paving the way for the Big 12 to put 2 into the college football playoff. That's what you're doing. And now the other side of that coin is, and I think it's very likely Miami will dominate Florida. I think that's very likely. I think it is highly unlikely that Clemson can stay within 17 points of Georgia. I think Georgia, I feel like I'm talking in cliches today. They have a point to prove.
Yeah.
They got embarrassed last year.
What's the number right now for
871?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
They're favored by 800 and
I mean, what must it be? 17 at least?
What would you guess it is?
I would guess it's like 17 or 20.
It is 13 and a half.
13 and a half. That's a real generous number.
And that, but again, neutral site, Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
Yeah.
In Atlanta.
Yeah.
And I think we're all well aware, Clemson ain't that far from Atlanta. Now, Athens is down the street, but Clemson is not that far from Atlanta. That's a neutral site game.
I don't know. I see that being at least 20 for Georgia.
I don't know. I need to see it. That's 10 a.m. Saturday, noon Eastern, 10 a.m. Mountain, 9 a.m. Pacific, ABC, national TV, huge game. Like, you look at the teams. Again, look at my Irish, who are going to get their ass handed to them in College Station. A&M, I'm asking you to look at this. I am clear-eyed about Marcus Freeman being a failure of a head coach. Like, I'm clear-eyed about it.
Mm-hmm.
You're this great team that everybody says, my God, Notre Dame, they are so alive and real, more real than Manti Tate. No, I'm not.
Notre Dame, our mother.
You're a 3-point dog at Texas A&M. New head coach, new athletic director, pretty much, crippled by paying their ex-Jimbo Fisher failure $8 trillion a day.
Well, you want to be favored on the road?
Yes. God. Do you guys see what I deal with? You're the seventh,
issue, isn't it?
You're number 7 going to number 20. And you're an underdog at Texas A&M.
I don't know. I mean, it's only 3 points. Like,
okay. I'm telling you.
What do you want to be, a 3-point favorite? You're not going to give them a touchdown favorite on the road.
You should be You're the almighty Irish of Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Well, because you're not. You're not. Does Riley Leonard survive the game?
Probably not.
Probably not.
Honestly, probably not.
Like, my point is, when you look at Notre Dame, you're the 7th team in the country going to play number 20, and you're a dog on the road. And all week, all I've been hearing about from the comment section and everybody else is that I'm just being a pessimistic, whining, crying, complaining Notre Dame fan, which is fine. But explain to me how you're the number 7 team in the country and you're a 3-point dog on the road.
Right.
Pretty much across the board. Where else is that the case? Where else is that the case? Somebody explain to me, show me in the top 25. Because everybody says, well, Notre Dame's a college football playoff team. No, they're not. But show me where, like Utah playing Southern Utah. Okay, Southern Utah, nothing. If you look at the top 25 matchups, Georgia is a 2-touchdown favorite.
What's Penn State?
Penn State's an 8-point favorite on the road at Morgantown.
Yeah.
But no buts, Monty.
No,
they're
Monties.
not. People don't respect Notre Dame, and I hope it's finally starting to sink in that people don't respect Notre Dame. So you have number 13 LSU against number 23 SC in Las Vegas. It's a road game for LSU. They're a 4-point favorite.
Mm-hmm.
But you're number 7 going to number 20, and you're a 3-point dog.
Yeah. It's a fair point. That's fair.
Yeah. I'm telling you, Notre Dame is not a national championship contender. Marcus Freeman, until he shows us otherwise, is not qualified and is not capable of leading the Irish. Hey.
Well, I think that conversation is more than justified.
I just am. I'm not here for it. Like, West Virginia is a very interesting game this week. West Virginia is a very, very interesting game. I think there is a real chance for the pedos from Happy Ending Valley to go to Morgantown and lose.
Mm-hmm.
And if not, I'm going to punch Neil Brown in the face, the head coach at West Virginia.
Because I'll drop that motherfucker.
You're one of the Penn State is, we talk about hate in sports.
Yes.
And it's okay to use the word. I don't believe you should be saying you hate somebody else in the world. I just don't. In sports, we don't live in the real world. It's all fantasy. I hate Penn State. I hate James Franklin. I hope he never wins another game as a coach. I hope Penn State never plays another football game. And I hope they lose in Morgantown. I am.
Well, you know what that strategy is going to be. It's going to be to run the football, suffocate the clock.
Yeah, I hope they never win another game. I hope they never win another game. I do. I hope Marcus Freeman gets fired the minute that they lose that game. I hope he doesn't even get to talk to the team after the game. They just some priest from Notre Dame fires his ass before he ever
in his ass
before he no shouldn't even get back to the locker room. Should not even get back to rent that guy a car and make him drive his ass back to South. Should not be allowed. The guy, you couldn't put 11 guys on the field in a goal line situation.
Well, but Monty, what about a second chance? What about a chance to redeem himself?
Nope. We know who Marcus Freeman is. He's he's over his head.
Yeah.
In over his head at Notre Dame. The very fact that the beloved are dogs going to Texas A&M. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. And anyway, my point is, I think this is a critical season.
Oh, it's a hell of a start to the season too, scheduling wise. I mean, I think, everyone always said, oh, well, consolidation of conferences, we're not going to get big matchups. And I feel like the schedule to open the season proves that idea completely wrong.
I think it is a critically important season for the Big-12. I think it is the only. I think it's incredibly important that the Big-12 put 2 in, because I don't see the ACC getting 2 in. I think Florida State is going to struggle. I think you are looking at a Clemson team that is probably lofty. What are they, 14th? They're probably lofty. You have people picking Utah to actually win the college football playoff. I mean, the Big 12 needs to find a hero. And it very well could be, outside of Utah, it very well could be Kansas, K-State. It very well could be UCF, who I think is going to be far better than anybody thinks. I know it's not Colorado. I'm pretty certain it's not Oak State.
Okay.
I want Joey McGuire to succeed.
I think most people do as well. Yeah.
But I just look at Tech's schedule. They're going to the Palouse to die. Like I hate that trip for Texas Tech. Is Washington State good? Probably not. Right? But you look at that run of at Arizona, Baylor, at TCU, at Iowa State, that Colorado, at Oak State, West Virginia. You're not a conference champion contending team.
Right.
Not right now. Not unless you show me something. But I look at the top half of this conference, and again, I think Kansas has the potential and the talent Can the quarterback stay healthy? Lindenwood, mighty Lindenwood, 45-point favorite. 45-point favorite.
Yeah.
In Kansas City, by the way. Right? They can beat anybody. TCU, I think TCU has to have a bounce back. I think they're going to beat the hell out of Stanford on Friday night. Now, that game's at Stanford Stadium. Great. That's not a home field advantage.
No.
The farm it's not intimidating. It's not scary.
I mean, you should win that game if you're TCU.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. Nada. Arizona. Why is Arizona 21st in the country? I don't know either. I don't know either. But I don't know. Anyway, point being, I think this is a critical season. The Big 12 has to find a way to get 2 in.
Yeah. Well, and I think that was even before we've seen what appears to be happening in the ACC with teams losing games that maybe they shouldn't have lost. And I think, it's just ratcheted it up. It's just sort of amplified that pressure and that need to take advantage of missteps.
This season has the ability to get off to a very bad start for me. I'm telling you, if Notre Dame loses that game, I don't know that I'll be here Monday. I don't know that I will survive the weekend.
Legitimately, though, what do you like?
Well,
what's he got to do to keep his job? College football playoff berth to keep his job?
Oh, that's a minimum. If this team doesn't go to the college football playoff, if Notre Dame doesn't go to the college football playoff, you're really not looking side-eyed at Marcus Freeman?
Yeah.
After terrible clock management repeatedly last year, after terrible personnel management repeatedly last year, because that 11-10 goal line situation against Ohio State, that was not the only time they had the wrong. Do you guys understand that in multiple scenarios they had the wrong personnel groupings on the field? Do you understand there were multiple times in 3rd and short where they were in dime? And in obvious situations, they were in dime against 3rd and short and gave up first downs on the run. Like, it's not the only time. So if they do not make the college football, they have a cupcake schedule, bro.
Yeah, it does. The question has to be asked, what is going to be the defining narrative of this season for Notre Dame? Because we know what it was last year.
They don't really play. Don't they play like 3 true road games? If I remember correctly, they play. Florida State is at Notre Dame Stadium. Like, you look at the SC game, that game's in Los Angeles, right, at the Coliseum. But leading into that game, they're home for Florida State, home for Virginia, and Army on November 23rd at Yankee Stadium. And then you turn around the next week and you go to SC. But the Yankee Stadium game, they should beat the hell out of Army.
Yeah.
And it's essentially a home game for Notre Dame. Anytime we play at Yankee Stadium, it's a home game. I'm just telling you, you look at this schedule, this weekend, that's their road game.
Yeah, you got to beat A&M. Yep.
It's at Texas A&M, Northern Illinois, at Boiler Down, Purdue, Miami of Ohio, Louisville. Louisville, that's a tough game. I'm not even.
Yeah, but if you're who you say you are, you should beat Louisville. You should beat Louisville.
I would think so. And that game's at the stadium. So, you look at the Stanford game on October 12th. That game's at the stadium. Should be absolutely no issue.
How real is Georgia Tech?
Now, you got to play Georgia Tech in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Right? That's going to be a tough game. That's a home game for Georgia Tech, even though it's supposedly a neutral site. That's a road game. Right? The Navy game, October 26th, is at MetLife Stadium. And you see what I'm saying? Like, you're playing these games. And again, I get it. It's Georgia Tech at the Dome. I totally understand. That's a road game. But is MetLife Stadium a road game for Notre Dame, who has a massive recruiting and fan base on the East Coast?
No.
Is Yankee Stadium a road game for Notre Dame? Stop. Come on. Like what are we even?
I agree that they don't have a lot of excuses. There's not a lot of reasons as to why Notre Dame shouldn't have a big year outside of the fact that, hey, you're, playing dime on 3rd and 1. Like, that's, if we see more of that, that would be a real shame considering the schedule they have. And by the way, being that you do have that schedule, you are going to have to be, undefeated 1-loss team. Like, you don't have the strength of
His
schedule.
defense is going to be very good. He will have, I think he could potentially have a top 10, probably top 7 defense in the country. I have no idea what our offense is going to look like. No idea. Don't believe the quarterback can stay healthy. I just don't. Hartman was a revelation for us at Notre Dame. We.
Yeah, obviously.
Me and the Holy Ghost.
Right.
Hartman was a revelation. It just is really, I don't know.
Let's see what they got. But that's all you can do. All you can do is hope that they go to A&M and win the ball game. That's all you can do.
Fat old Mormon and dying says.
Note the profile picture.
This blatant schedule manipulation is the reason Notre Dame needs to be in a conference. Okay. D-Rock Irish replying to Jack Harrington should, however, we need to get out of our own way. Yeah, have 11 guys on the field. Notre Dame's opponent is Notre Dame. See, I'm not the only one.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen this movie before.
Listen, they're the best team in the country, dude. Come on.
Not to give away the plot twist, but Marcus Freeman ain't the sharpest tool in the shed in pressure situations. I mean, come on now. Come on. D-Rock, last 2 plays of the Ohio State game, we had 10 guys on the field. Jack Harrington, Notre Dame will beat FSU. FSU might go 8-4. Well, yeah. We'll see. We'll see. Kaner and BYU goes 3-0 and ends 8-4, saving the coach's job. Well, but BYU again. Am I disappointed in BYU fans? On the whole, I'm not. But this vocal minority of BYU fan that says Jake Retzloff is the same guy today that he was against Oklahoma last year is lost. I don't understand it. This BYU quarterback situation, I think everybody's on board that it's probably Jake Retzloff. I'm not the only one saying that. I don't think there's any question that Jake Retzloff is a better, more able quarterback today than he has ever been at BYU. Notably, he's not coming off of surgery. He didn't miss spring and summer, and he is at 100%. He knows the playbook like he wrote it. I think Jake Retzloff is the only guy for that job. He's the only guy for that job.
Yeah, and I will be disappointed if we see this nonsense of like a 2-quarterback system, and you can't do that and be good, in my opinion. You need to have a starter, you need to have a starting quarterback, and you need to run an offensive system.
Yeah, let's go back a little bit because I know there's a lot of people. Mike Smith says Virginia Polytechnic.
Right.
Va-Tech is going to be good. Va-Tech is going to be good. Lopes Fan Gabe, hit the like button. Yes, please. Hit the like button. It really helps the channel grow. San Diego State. Glenn, someone asked for political talk. They did, really. They actually have some coming up. I'll be watching the Colorado Buffs post-game TV ratings just as closely as the presidential polls. But see, this is my point. This is my point. Their first 6 games, North Dakota State at Nebraska, at Colorado State, Baylor at UCF, K-State.
Good luck.
It's a really tough schedule. It's a really tough schedule. But I will be watching too. There's no doubt. The Big Lubbock. Texas Tech goes 10-2 this year.
Man, the Big-12 needs that so bad.
And I will say what I always say. Texas Tech. Because Oak State with Mike Gundy just isn't that team. He's not a guy who consistently wins big games. And especially in the postseason. But if we look at the Big 12, that's a scary game for Tech this week. That is a scary game. Because you need to come out and beat them by 50, 60 points.
Yeah.
I mean, you need to come out because look at Tech's schedule. You're going to beat Abilene Christian. Come on. That game at Washington State, tell me that's not your trip to Laramie last year. North Texas, you should be 3-0. And my belief is you shouldn't probably give up a touchdown. Arizona State, Cincinnati, 5-0. At Arizona is your first opportunity for a loss. That's your first opportunity to lose a game. Because, again, I'm just little old Morty over here.
Right.
Or, excuse me, the fat dying Mormon. Arizona is supposedly this amazing team that somehow lost Jed Fish, hired the guy from San Jose State, and we're supposed to believe that a quarterback wide receiver combo, and it might be the best in the country, might be. You're telling me that that's the Fighting Fafitas all of a sudden are going to be. You should be able to go to Tucson and win that game. If you're legit, you should come out of Tucson October 5th undefeated. And then beat Baylor and then lose at TCU. If you haven't lost, what are you, 9-0 at that point? 7-0? If you get to Baylor and you haven't lost yet, you're going to beat Baylor, right? What is that? 3, 6, 7-0. 7-0 going to TCU, you're 7-1. You're going to lose at Iowa State. You just are. That's a November 2nd game in Ames, Iowa.
Good luck.
7-2, 8-2 against Colorado at home. The Oak State game is the game that'll determine great season or just a season. If you're happy with a bowl game, it's because you lost to Oak State. Because that's the game of note. It's in Stillwater. You should beat West Virginia, the running West Virginia Mountaineers, in what will likely be Neil Brown's farewell tour. You have the potential to lose 3 games. TCU, Iowa State, and Oak State. Now, Barron's got to stay healthy. Taj has to stay healthy. You better have a better play caller on defense.
Seriously.
Let's not go 0 blitz. That was one of the worst defensive play calls I've ever seen.